Welcome, everybody. This is the Glacier Gamble podcast, back at it with the final edition
With
of
the white
Arcane.
vans.
Going to be talking about some future projects with League of Legends, Riot Games, what they announced, but mainly going to be talking about Arcane, the finale, everything that occurred there. Spoiler alert: it's been about a week since the show came out, so if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it because there will be spoilers in this. Just gonna let you know. Also, while you're here, remember to like, subscribe, and let us know what you thought about the show in the comments, what you did or didn't like. Hearing like 99% positive things, so definitely want to hear from both sides, especially if there's stuff you didn't like. But yeah, let's jump into it. Let's get talking about it. Every emotion was felt in Act Two. All the final or all the
Act
final
three.
act three, all the
Yeah.
final emotions from
Yeah. All emotion.
sad to happy to horny, everything
Yeah.
was
You do a little
felt.
bit of everything. Yeah.
And I guess League of
You
Legends
feel
just
a
does
little bit of
that.
everything.
Yeah.
There's a coolness through your body, there's a warmness through your body.
Yeah. There's some
Blood rushes to your
tightness.
brain, your heart, and then
Yeah.
you just love the show. Props to Arcane for being the highest rated animated project in IMDb history. Every episode scored above a 9, which has never happened in any animated show, I believe.
Oh, it's funny you say that because
Entirety for a season.
IGN gave the whole season 2 a 7.
Yeah, well, IGN.
That's just IGN summed up there. Sets a record for animated shows for all nines or better. And they say
IGN
it's a
also, I
7.
associate IGN more with video games, so I can't really necessarily trust their show
How do you love video games and play
standards.
League of Legends and not like the show?
Exactly, and maybe they're changing the they're changing the canonity.
Yeah,
I'm saying that canonity. That's a tough one. Try saying that.
canonidity.
See, it's weird. They're changing the what's canon and what's not canon, which has some League of Legends fans in a tizzy. I actually think it's perfect because so take us back. We do a lot of Marvel stuff, so take it back
Yes.
to Marvel, where we're trying to decipher if this is Earth 616 or the Universe 616 or Universe 19999, right? 199999, whatever it is, right? How if there's 4 9s or 5 9s or 6 9, nice.
Nice.
So we differentiate. We think it's 19999, right?
Yes. Yep.
Because like the comic universe is one iteration of it, and and the multiverse aspect exists in Runeterra too. So, this canon world is the Arcane. Like I everything that's in Arcane, I view as canon, rather than the old stories that have passed through League of Legends or Journals of Justice or whatever you want to say. Like all that has changed. They've gone through visual upgrades. They've gone through lore updates. All that. So Arcane is canon to me now because we're seeing it.
A
But
couple years ago, Riot said that moving forward, anything in their everything that they create is going to be canon. Anything new. So they told us that anything in Arcane was going to become canon. Anything that comes out in future cinematics or side games are going to be canon.
sure.
And so they kind of gave everybody a warning, and not to mention we did find out, if people, if you listen to some of the other people within Riot Games, the second season of Arcane has been being worked on for 3 years now.
Yeah.
And they kind of knew, they had the fight scene of the final act. They had a fight scene in all 3 acts, but the final act fight scene, they had the start of it 2 years ago. So they knew what they were going to be doing with this story. That's partially probably why they warned us that canon would be changing. They probably knew they were going to change somebody like Victor.
Right.
And they were just getting ahead of the curve. So most people, if they were listening, paying attention, knew that there was going to be some changes. Obviously, if a character dies, they're not going to be like removed from the game.
Right.
They're just canonically dead.
Sure.
So like, first of all, there was a few characters that have died, right? Or at least we saw something happen to them.
Sure.
Like Heimerdinger.
Right. And Yordles are weird because they're like Heimerdinger's 1,200 years old. So it's like, and like Yordles are magical. So they like, I've seen things where it's like Yordles don't really die. They just kind of like reincarnate. I don't know.
His body wasn't there when Powder showed up.
Right.
So
right. But you didn't see him explode. You just saw him disappear.
Right. Like when
like
the
you don't know what
when they pushed the time travel anomaly too far, his head started to explode and like eyes bulged out.
Right.
That was not how he died when
Right.
Echo used it. So my assumption, like in my mind, I think Heimer got sent somewhere else.
To a different universe,
either
possibly.
Another universe, another timeline.
Vandal City.
Yeah, maybe he's Vandal, like in a Vandal where he's going to become the more hex tech inventor that we see in the game. Maybe
Sure.
Because we didn't see him with rockets or his turret, it was kind of we didn't get to really see a full use of his character, which is fine. You don't have to see everyone and everything. Blitzcrank. We don't have to see everything. But we didn't really see the Janna. We didn't really get to see Zeri. We didn't really get to see like the full extent of him. Which, yeah. So there's plenty that could happen in the future with these characters. And whenever you don't see a character die, there's usually a good chance that they're not dead.
Yeah, that's Saw 101 or Horror Movie 101.
I think Heimer is just out there. Otherwise we would have seen the body, or we would have seen like
an emotional death kind of. Right.
Yeah, which
emotional thing. Sure.
While we're on Heimerdinger, if you don't like Heimerdinger's song, I don't like you. I've tweeted that out and it's still true. I added that song. It's on Spotify. I added it to a couple playlists. I was listening to it at work. It was probably my favorite song in the show.
Sure.
I think a lot of it, like cinematically, there was a few things of their score, like when Jinx does her entrance in the final scenes. There was a few really good placed music that brought out the emotion that they wanted in that scene. But none really made me feel it more than the apparently most popular episode. If you're only considering Twitter, episode 7 was everyone's favorite. I think I think the scores say that 9 was the favorite, or 8 was the favorite. 8. I think it was the score said 8 was the highest.
Sure.
But Twitter was all about episode 7.
Was sweet, right? Like that was Echo's episode, and you got to see like what could have been, and I think a lot of people appreciate that.
Right, and the fact that though they like did love each other. And we know that they probably loved each other in this universe. It's just what happens when Silco isn't forgiven.
Right.
Like Vander doesn't forgive Silco.
Right.
And Silco takes over, then he takes over Powder into Jinx. It's like
it
could have been this version of Powder.
Zahn could have been how they expected it.
Like it was a Zahn how they wanted. It would have been so great. And Echo's still my favorite character, so getting a full episode and the shining moment in the finale.
Right. God, you see his like League of Legends abilities come through, whereas like you've seen everyone's League of Legends abilities so far. So it's like
Mel and Echo were the MVPs of that with the
And Mel's story's not over either. Like that's the cool part.
Yeah.
More on that later, I'm sure. But
so people are freaking out about like certain characters being canonically dead. Would LeBlanc be canonically dead?
No, I think LeBlanc's probably back in Noxus.
Right.
That's what I think, because she's like everyone sees her as the leader of the Black Girls. What I think is going to happen is that they're going to have some sort of interaction. But LeBlanc's title in League of Legends is the Deceiver. So I think she's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, Mel, like let's stop the Black Rose together," and then it's gonna be like, "Psych," like
Psych.
so.
Uh, yeah, so
Yeah,
there's obviously episode 7 had a lot to like Heimer's story. We got to see not I don't think he's dead. We got to see what could have been. We got to see Echo getting his, time travel abilities, which
right.
is
His
more
ultimate,
game
right? Like,
accurate.
yeah, right,
And just like in the game, he can go back 4 seconds is like his max. And as many people have seen, but if you didn't see, the dance scene with Echo and Powder was shot at 4 FPS because it's the exact amount of seconds he can go. It was very touching.
sure.
Um, that's one of the emotions that got brought out, and they just hit you right away with happiness, love, bittersweet emotion before they throw you into episodes 8 and 9.
Right.
And then,
Well, right after 6 too, like right
right.
after 6.
And we got to see
Well, yeah,
what happened with Jace when he was inside the anomaly, or when he got sent. He got to see what was
right,
going to happen if Victor won.
right. Or yeah, like what the trajectory of everything was going to be, right?
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
what was going to happen if Victor continued on his path, and the anomaly kind of overwhelms everything. The hex core,
right,
but in that hex core, with which it turned from, the original when you go with the first season. Silco and everybody was trying to overtake Piltover because Piltover was this like overpowering, overwatching evil empire
why do
almost.
they have it good and we have it bad,
And
kind
then
of
it
thing?
turned
Yeah,
into, is Jinx the villain? And then it turned into, is Ambessa the villain? And then it became, the final was, oh no, it's like this whole time it's been Jason Victor's story.
right.
Like that's how at least I felt, was like we've been
Yeah, I think
following Vi
season
and
1 was
Jinx so
Jinx. Yeah,
much.
season 1 is definitely Jinx and Vi. And then this one, it definitely, the overarching thing was Jason Victor for sure.
Right.
So,
Which is, it felt like a really nice ending to the, like, everybody still got their moments of shining,
right,
but to bring it back to Jason Victor, like a non-romantic two
maybe.
people that are clearly like in love with each other,
Right.
even if they're not
Yeah.
in a romantic
Right.
relationship
Yeah.
or like a sexual
Yeah,
relationship.
they're like brothers. Like,
It
it's so tough.
was, when they
Yeah.
put their foreheads together, I was closer to crying there than at any other moment in that show,
Sure.
because it was touching, and it was awesome to see that they tried everything. They tried fighting back. They beat Noxus. They used magic. They used hex tech. They used all their regular weapons. They had Jinx come in with her group with the firelights as a surprise, and
Right.
Victor was still winning. And it was proof like you could never overpower him physically, but the one way they overcame Victor was a hug, like
Yeah.
from Jace. That was his way to get through, was hugging Victor, forgiving Victor, and then obviously Echo hitting him in the head.
Right. Yeah.
But it was a, just like the rest of the show, it was like poetically written, where you would have very little room to say, where can I improve this? And it's another statement
Yeah, I
towards
think
they care
another
so much.
another awesome thing with Jace is you see him go through all the mental struggles, and then he gets to the end scene where he sees himself being like hexcorified,
Mm-hmm.
and it's there with the hammer, and then the 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 lost Jace basically like lets the hammer go and gives it to our Jace and is like, you have to stop this.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, Jace sees, the hooded figure, which ends up, and being the like final scene almost. So
Right. And it was the victor that had won, had been the wizard watching him basically
right.
his whole time, gave him the original piece of the hex
The
tech,
rune,
the
yeah, or
rune.
like the rune, yeah.
Um, which a lot of people predicted, but some things need to be predictable in order for a story. That's why it's, good writing, but that was one of those things some people predicted, and it's not something that's so predictable it ruins it. It's one of those things that's predictable because it's good.
Right.
There was a few other character deaths. So that was the big thing that changed canonically, is now that is Victor. They changed him from his
Yeah.
like Iron Man looking look with the
Yeah.
robot, like where he's robotic, to more of a mix between biological and hex tech and magic.
Right.
Like it's all
Right.
combined, which makes sense. And in my opinion, it looks better.
Very good. Yeah, it looks very good. Everyone's upset about that, but I'm like, it looks super good. I
Old
don't know. I
Victor
don't
looks
understand.
like you're trying to make a classic game, where new Victor looks like more improved. Kind of like when you look at certain games, you go, okay, that was made in the 90s or early
Right.
2000s or maybe even 2010, somewhere in there. But like when old Victor, when I look at his, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of more of like an
It was
old
13
school.
years ago Victor came out, which is insane.
And now this Victor, it's like, yeah, that seems like somebody from 2024, designed a character and wants to put him
Right.
in League of Legends.
And everyone likes I saw someone say it's like, I'm here for the body horror, because you see while they're in like the Hextech plane, the mask like split his head, and then
Yeah.
like and I'm like, all right, like that's creepy as hell. That's creepy as hell. Like his mind's still there, but there's definitely the piece of the hex core that has control of him too. So
And you knew the way they showed the moment of him completely giving in was when Sky left.
right.
When she says goodbye, that's Victor letting the hex core control
Succumbing
him.
to it.
Yeah. And that was also a very like, you might not have understood what it meant until he became the ascended Victor, basically.
Right. Yeah.
When she said goodbye, I felt a little confusion, like is he dying or what's happening now? But it was really, he was just saying goodbye to his human side until Jace
Right.
brings it back out in him.
Right.
But yeah, that was like, for me, Jace and Victor, that was awesome that they got the overarching. We got to see them kind of come back to where the show started, of Jace discovering the little balls of hex tech,
Right. Right.
and moving, kind of
The
going back to
Arcane,
that.
yeah.
And then
right.
with Vi and Jinx and Caitlyn and Vander, we don't get to ever see Vander become wolf, like
Right.
full wolf. I'm not as big of a fan of the human face as I am the wolf face.
Yeah. Right. Like the werewolf-esque face rather than the full-on wolf. Yeah.
So if they change Warwick in the game,
I think they just dropped the Arcane skin.
right, which I think a
him.
lot of people thought would happen with Victor, but instead
Sure.
Victor's getting a full VGU.
Right.
So that's a visual gaming update for those who aren't familiar, or visual something update. But anyway, yeah, I think Warwick's just getting the one, like the Vander skin.
Sure.
And I think that's a good choice, just because the human face is kind of off-putting, and he's coming into
Right.
TFT, and
Right.
obviously there's characters that died in Arcane that are in TFT, so it's kind of its own, separate from League of Legends. It's a little muddy, but we can see what is true and what is not, and
Sure.
I think pretty clearly. But speaking of Vi and Jinx and Vander and Caitlyn and Mel and all these other side characters and main characters, Jinx became suicidal. She'd given up after Isha died, and a lot of people think she's still alive, which they should, because the reason they showed Caitlyn looking at the air vents and
Plans of the tower,
that,
yeah, like the blueprints of the tower, right?
was to show, because she smiles because she realizes Jinx got away. And they've made, if you can connect all the dots. There was a previous reference to Jinx
First
powder
episode.
saying she wants to ride one of those
I'm gonna ride on
airships.
one of those things
I'm
one
going to
day.
ride on
Yeah.
those one day. They cut back to Silco saying the only way to end the cycle is for you to leave, not for you to
Right.
die, like for you to leave. She escaped and is leaving.
The explosion, you see the purple blast before it explodes.
Right.
So which is probably her shimmering out of there because she can do the little shimmer dashes.
Exactly. Her shimmering into an air vent.
Right.
So if anything, the only one that would be dead would be Vander,
Vander. Right.
which he might not be, but I think that was them showing she got away. There's a chance she comes back at some point in a future project, but Jinx is finally happy in my eyes, being alone, having Vi know that she's happy with, like, she knows Vi is safe, taken care
Right. It
of,
can
and
move on. Vi can move
she
on.
can become like an enforcer if needed, and yeah, Vi
Right.
can officially, she can just move on. And I think they did that on purpose, and they couldn't kill Jinx. They just couldn't. She's a
Yeah.
fan favorite for
She's the
almost,
face of Arcane. She's
yeah.
the face of their like shows.
When she was
So
introduced into the game years ago,
she got her own music video.
she got her own music video. She was super. I mean, I remember her login screen to the game. There
She's
was,
riding the rocket.
it had to have been the most cosplayed character in League of Legends history, even after like a week. And every
Right.
time Arcane, the first season and now this season, is just a new wave of people cosplaying Jinx. It has to be the biggest, like, most
Yeah.
cosplayed character. But I think she's alive.
I do too.
Kate has one eye now.
Yes, she got stabbed in the eye.
Yeah,
Very much so. It's cool though. I mean, it's cool. Like everyone has battle scars, you know. Like Vi's is emotionally, really, but Caitlyn's is physically.
right.
Um,
Well, and she's
Jinx
got cuts and shit all over her body. Vi does.
right. Yeah. So I mean, Jinx lost her middle finger. So, like, yeah, I don't know. You see these little things, and like everyone's gone through it. Like you see, Jace's mental struggle was probably like one of the worst. Like Jace's mental struggle was equivalent of like Jinx's mental struggle.
Yeah, Jinx
Like
Jinx had
like
like a definitely a downward spiral. Jace's like mental was broke.
yeah,
He went all the way over to the other side of, he lost emotion. He would just
Yeah.
became a sociopathic
Husk,
murderer
yeah.
almost. Yeah, he was a husk. Yeah. But, speaking of, Vi and Kate finding happiness, there was this very popular scene of them, the two of them. I think it's very interesting. So I described the scene to my wife because she hasn't watched it yet, disappointingly. I described it to her about how, Vi, wait, I saw somebody while you're gone. Fuck Maddie.
Caitlyn,
Kate, I don't
I
fucking
don't
care.
fucking care.
Gets right back into making out. They take their clothes off. They show Vi's got her hands on Caitlyn's
Vi.
boobs as she goes down on her to hide them. Says,
Yeah.
my wife's like, did they show anything? And I was like, no, like no TNA was shown, but you knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And it's like it cut to her
kisses,
face.
like kisses her like bikini line, and then goes down lower. And I was like, oh my god.
And then they cut to Kate's face, having nothing but happiness on it. It's like, yep, that we know what's going on there.
Right.
And I was like, apparently that scene was way more graphic, but Netflix slapped them and said, you need to rewrite this.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, it's more graphic than that. And I was like, well, I mean, it's Netflix. They can't show too much, but yeah, I'd be interested to hear what would had to be removed. Well, I don't need to see it for all you freaks out there. I don't need to, if you have the link, please, but I don't need to see it. But what was cut? And did you animate it at all or draw it? I just need to know. Like, just like for a friend.
Right.
I would be curious about what was cut. Did it was like, yeah, because I feel kind of similar. Like, I think they did a really good job of, they like using camera angles to hide.
As all the TikTok edits say, they had a really good showing of Sesby and Lex. So,
Sesbian legs.
yeah,
I thought they did a really good job with the angles and lighting and everything to make sure they didn't show much, but you could tell that
knew what
it's
was.
not
I mean,
like
you knew what was going on.
it's not like you watched it and didn't go like,
It's
holy
not like
shit,
you watched
this
it
is
10
heavy.
times and watched and
Pause, rewind, and restart just to make sure everything.
I have to make sure the scene. That's funny.
And the fact that it kind of started because Kate admitted to her that she knew Vi was going to come try to break her out, so she sent all the guards away.
Sure.
And that was her admitting, like, I've always been on your side, and Vi being like, and I've always been here for you. And that was their way of, like, consummating that emotion. And they did it so well, and they just, it was awesome. I love them as a couple. I think it's just they did such a good job of creating a visual.
And Kaylin's gone through that journey of I can't trust you because I don't trust your sister.
Right.
And eventually you see halfway through when Kate essentially like handcuffs her and sends her to Mbessa, but doesn't really handcuff her. So like it's like one of those things where it's like I that's where the trust switched, where it's like I'm not with Noxus anymore. I realize I've made a mistake. I'm gonna trust you now. I'm gonna trust us to do what's right. And so
absolutely. God. Yeah. It was just,
you see the 50 caliber net too.
yeah.
Vi Kaylin gives Vi that to use. So
and uses it on Mbessa, traps her.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've seen the ace in the hole and the shooting, and you didn't see the cupcake traps, but like you get the reference to cupcake enough throughout it. So like
you get most of her character fully done. You got to see Vi use her charging punch. You got to all of it. I think so. You got to see like the emotional closure between Jace and Victor. You got to see like the forgiveness between them, like Kate forgiving Vi forgiving kind of herself, Jinx forgiving herself, and all going their own way, and Mbessa reaching her where what needed to happen.
Like even some of the side characters, you got Singed, who, I mean, Singed is a big staple in League of Legends. Like he's one of the original character. 10. Right. So, and 20. You see his story. You see like Savika. So you see a bunch of these like side characters get their ending and kind of see what happens with them.
It was nice to get all that sort of closure of what they needed to do, where either they need to kind of move on, and we got to see it. And then like Singe, like you mentioned, he got his moving on, which is strange considering he was
just an asshole.
He was like a horrible guy the whole show.
Right.
And then
you realize that back then he was one of the people that was like in studies with Heimerdinger, and he was the rogue student that hurt a bunch of people.
The rogue student who created Shimmer. Now everybody's addicted to this drug that he created. He basically like created heroin and like just done all these horrible things to individuals, to society, but his daughter Oriana got to stick around, and he got his ending, but we don't know how she's going to react. Is she going to stick around, live with him, or but that just makes me so for all like that was kind of the whole what happened, the ending, everything. Everybody ended. Vi and Kate are together. Jinx is on her own. Jace and Victor disappeared into somewhere
in the hex core, like
I don't, maybe in a similar situation. Heimer went everybody, and then
Echo's healing, and Echo's probably healing, and he's probably going to be tasked to kind of rebuild Zon.
Echo will be the new leader of Zon because he had a connection to Vander, Silco,
and I think you're gonna get the help from Piltover now that Savika's on the council.
Right,
So
exactly. So they're all gonna like move forward. It's kind of a happy ending for most, not necessarily
right
for all, but for
for
most.
this area, yeah,
For
for
this,
most of
yeah.
it.
So we kind of have a good 80% of a story built in Piltover and Zahn, but enough where
Right,
we can come back if needed for characters like Zeri, Blitzcrank, those sorts of things.
right.
If they
Urgot.
if they want.
Right.
But people like
There's one
Mel,
story that was not, yeah, one story that was not concluded,
do you
and
saying
that's
that's
Mel
Mel?
Mel Medarda. Yeah,
Yeah, Mel Medarda did not get finished, so we I think towards the future they showed Oriana as to me that's like this is not the
we
only
may
time
come
you're
back.
gonna see her.
We got right.
And then Mel's didn't fully wrap up.
Right.
She's now imbued with her magic and fully use it.
And
They need to
then
add her to League of Legends.
I think they did. They said she's gonna be 2025.
Yeah. So
yeah.
And
They showed so she still has a hatred for the Black Rose, and she wants to bring the Black Rose down, and she can't do that from Piltover / Zahn.
So she's most likely going to,
and so she's probably going to head back to her land and heritage. I don't know if technically she's going to be in charge of Noxus, because Ambessa obviously was. So I don't know. Obviously, there's going to be there was a little teaser.
There was a
towards
teaser
the end
regarding Noxus.
There was a teaser towards the end, and I believe said teaser is a high-ranking general in Noxus. So
for those of you, especially the don't play the game, there was a crow with 3 eyes on each side.
Right.
And it was clearly very interested in where the hex core was. And it was checking out the container that held Victor. And then that crow flew with the ships that were heading back to Noxus.
Right, which I imagine that Mel is on.
Yes, and so that is most likely Swain or one of Swain's crows doing some scouting.
Swain is God, what's the Swain's name? Rost? No, isn't it Kane and Rost?
That's Kane and Rost, yeah.
But
General Swain.
yeah.
From Noxus, he is a sorcerer that can turn into a giant crow. He can have crows do his bidding, and he's very strong. And if he's one of the main characters.
Raum is the demon that is inside of Swain.
If he's one of the main characters of the next show or project that they make, because Riot Games announced that the next major show or the next
which they said they've been working on for at least a year
is
already.
Noxus, Demacia, and Ionia.
Right.
We don't know if all 3 are going to be in the same show. We don't know if it's like 2 separate shows, 3 shows, what it is. But I think it's going to be at least Noxus and Demacia, and a couple characters from Ionia that most likely leads us into Ionia's
the
own
Noxus
show.
Ionia. Yeah, I think I want to see if they're leading into the Noxus Ionia war. It's going to be insane.
I think it would be awesome if they did a Noxus Demacia Ionia show that ended with a Noxus Ionia movie.
Yeah, because like I just watched the cinematic yesterday where it is Noxus invading Ionia, and you see Aurelia and Akali and Kennen and Karma and Yasuo defending against like Scion and the Noxus army, and I was like, this would be insane to watch. Like, you introduce the Ionia, and then you introduce like, I think a movie would be sweet because you'd have like the Ninja Order if you wanted to.
Right. And leading up to it with a show allows you to expand the side characters that make a movie too long that aren't necessarily needed. But then you had them in the show, so then it's like, oh, I don't need to see Kennen in the movie because we got a little story on Kennen in the show.
Right. You got and then I just want to see Master Yi do his thing.
Yeah.
I want to see the Noxians like
I want Wukong
come at one man. Yeah, I think that's something like I think that's something where like if you introduce Master Yi and then you have like a post credit scene, you could have introduce Wukong and the Vestians.
So
So
League of Legends used to have a forums page on their website. You can go on, talk to other players, post questions, kind of like Reddit. They had plus ups and down arrows. Um, I used to go on those when I was in college pretty regularly. If I was sitting in class bored, I'd often just peruse the forums, ask random questions, comment on people. One of the ones I posted was, do you believe they're going to add Wukong's apprentice in the future? I think because they've shown that characters that are in the show, they do eventually want to put in the games like League or TFT. This is, and I know this is positive thinking. It's very much like Marvel when you have an idea for a post credit scene and you think it's perfect, and then Marvel doesn't include anything. They don't include any
sure.
hint. But this Ionia show would be an amazing time to include Wukong's apprentice and Zelos.
Right.
That's like in terms of the game, in terms of League of Legends or TFT, Zelos and Wukong's apprentice could be characters that bring in, not even including what I want to see, because those are like three of your biggest pools of champions now that you have to choose from. Demacia, Noxus, and Ionia all combined.
Right.
There's no way they're gonna
Yeah, especially because Ionians is the Vestians, and damn near every character that comes out is Vestian, it seems like.
Right,
So
you have the ninjas, the Vestians, you have I'm like there's
like the half animal people, the full animal people, like they're all Vestians. Most of them are Vestians. So it's like everyone likes people with ears, you know what I mean? So
they're either going to have to like rework some characters that they want to include to say they're from somewhere else if they're not in the show, or it's going to have to be more than 2 season 9 episodes if they want to include more people, or they're going to have to create less original characters, which I don't think people necessarily want because they did such a good job.
Right.
So I'm hoping that, especially if all 3 are included, I'm hoping it's a minimum of 3 seasons with like 12 episodes a season.
Right. I think what's going to happen is this is just my initial thought. I think Noxus is going to become very strong.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to rival what Demacia can do.
Oh, sure. Yep.
And instead of trying Demacia, because I still think in the back of their mind they're going to be like, Demacia probably could wipe the floor with us, because Demacia is insane, right? Like they're the capital city of Runeterra, essentially. Like it's the biggest city. It's like a capital. It's this giant kingdom, and they've got all the resources. They got the most resources. And so I don't think Noxus is going to essentially want to try Demacia. They may think about it, but then they're going to be like, you know what? Let's go take Ionia.
Right.
Instead.
If we take Ionia, we'll have enough to take Noxus.
Right.
And they might even start with like infiltrating the Ninja Order with Zed.
Right. Yeah. So, and then I think what follows this is if this goes on for 3 seasons or so, I think what follows this is probably the Shadow Isles, Bilgewater, and Shurima. I think that would be the next one.
I'm very glad you mentioned
Bilgewater.
By the way.
Yeah, I think Bilgewater is one of those.
I saw
Bilgewater
a lot of people
directly
about Bilgewater.
Bilgewater kind of directly goes. You could say it goes with the Shadow Isles because it's kind of out at sea.
Right. Well, people were saying so. They called the prison was Bilgewater Prison, right?
I don't know. I thought it was just a prison in.
I thought the Piltover prison they called Bilgewater or something.
I don't know about that.
Right. I can't remember. It was something.
I thought it was down in the tower, like below the giant tower.
It was, yeah, but it was like out on the water, but below. It's anyway. I saw some people complaining that because they're leaving this, we're not going to get Bilgewater. I was like, there's no chance they skip out on Bilgewater, purely because, like, okay, so let's get real for a moment, all right? we knew this wasn't going to be the end of League of Legends Riot Games shows because of the amount of money this is going to be making them. So
Right.
when they were like, "This is the finale," we knew that there was going to be more. It is a very popular show amongst people our age, slightly older, but everyone
League of Legends
younger than
fans,
us.
non-League of Legends fans, like,
And like
doesn't matter.
teenagers
Like,
love this show. Some of the things that make this show popular outside of it being like great writing, all the stuff you would get,
very
soundtrack,
unique animation style.
animation. It is extremely accepting. It has LGBTQ references. They are extremely open and accepting to everything. So appeals to the teenage group very much, very much. Bilgewater not having it would mean no Twisted Fate and Graves.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
not missing out on Graves and Twisted Fate. They, from a story wise, they're gonna love that. They're gonna do it. But from a marketing standpoint, popularity, making money, they are not going to cut out one of their most popular gay relationships in the game. They're just
Right.
not going to do it. So
Right.
people that think we're not going to see Bilgewater, some people saying I need to see Misfortune in this show. It's stupid. Well, they are eventually, but just because we didn't really get to see it yet, and
I mean,
Nexus
that what's
Demacia
the
and
other
stuff like
one you could get? You could get Set and Aphelios, I suppose,
yeah,
but
Varus,
Set's
Cassante.
Vestayan. Yeah, was Varus? Well, who was Varus for? Was he Noxon?
I believe Varus was Noxus before his lover was like intertwined with him with his
Demon. Yeah.
Cassante's lover died because he refused to stop going on hunts. Or not died, he left him because he refused to stop going on hunts. So you could get like there's so and I'm pretty sure he's Shurima, which is another one that
Well, yeah, but and I mean, you
see.
get ties to Shurima. If we go to Noxus, which we will go to Noxus, we're gonna get the Dakoto.
That's the thing about
family.
doing all these huge areas. Demacia, Noxus, Ionia are so interconnected.
Right, like you have Cassiopeia, who has Shurima origins, but is still part of the Dakoto family.
And with Noxus Demacia, we talked about Garen Katarina,
yeah,
which means House Dakoto, which means Talus,
Silas.
Cassiopeia.
You're gonna have Garen hate mages because Demacia is not about mages, and neither is Noxus. So they're very similar in the fact that they don't necessarily like mages because for whatever reason. And then you're gonna have Garen and Silas battling, and then him realizing that his sister is a very, very, very powerful mage. So
you know who will 100% be in this next show though? Ezreal.
Darius and Draven.
Darius and Draven, yes. It's the League of Draven. It's Draven is going to be portrayed in like a gladiator format. I think he's going to make killing a spectacle. He's going to be like Negan.
Yeah.
He's going to
be Darius will just be like, I'm just here to chop your head off.
People are going to think Darius is a ripoff of Ambessa's bodyguard.
Yeah.
But if we can get Ezreal, there's no way we can't get Ezreal if they're gonna.
We haven't even talked about like Targon either,
right.
Like
because Ezreal has connections with Piltover, Demacia. He has a voice line talking about how he hates Noxans.
Right, Noxians. I hate those guys.
Right. I think there's
the Void. We haven't talked about the Void.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much, brother.
Exactly.
Like,
so people that are worried or mad that certain things haven't happened or aren't going to happen, they'll happen. Some characters may get left to the side. If you notice, the characters that were forgotten or not included this time around, Blitzcrank. What are you missing from not having Blitz?
Right.
What are you missing? Like Urgot, I can see being upset about.
You got it in a cinematic. Where Vi and Caitlyn fight Urgot.
Right.
That happens at some point. So,
and I think eventually, and Freljord is, I've said it.
Yeah, Freljord.
Freljord's the one I look forward to the most. Like if I'm going to complain about something, it's that it's not Freljord right away, but I'm gonna love every second of whatever they do. I just
You
hope
even
that
got
with
the Nasus Renekton
in
world
Shurima,
with
yeah.
the gods, like the
Not to
little
mention the side guys like Jax.
yeah.
You've got people that they might have to Bandle City. Like
Goes
I
on and on. It's extensive.
it could we could go on forever about what they could do. Each thing is so in depth. The story is so in depth that each little area could get 2 full seasons.
Right.
So when they're going huge like this, it has to be longer, either longer episodes, more seasons, or all three. Because I think there's more already given to them with these characters than there was for Piltover and Zahn.
Sure.
So you're gonna either have to rewrite a ton or work with more and do more, which is what I
Right.
hope they choose.
And Black Rose has ties to the Shadow Isles as well.
I
Because
don't know what they're
Elise,
going to do timing. We talked about this last episode. I would like to see Jarvan the third killed and the Scion creation, but I
right.
don't know if they're just going to jump us into like the Draven Darius timeline. Like,
Right.
I'm not sure where they're
Swain
gonna...
will be old. I mean, Swain will be older.
Right, that's
too.
the thing. What if they did young Swain, then the Jarvan the third and whatever timeline, and then moved into maybe even a time jump, maybe, and then maybe the first season is older, and then the start of season 2 is Mel showing
you
up.
You have to see
Noxus.
the Rom thing too. Like, how does Swain get his demon too?
Yeah, I think
I have no
young
idea.
Swain would be the next start, leading up into where season 2 is Jarvan the fourth instead of Jarvan the third. Scion's been recreated. Mel's on their way. Swain has become a general. Darius and Draven have worked their way up. I think that would be what's most satisfying for me. Obviously, I'm going to trust them on what they do, but that's what I want to see.
Sure.
What do you want to see, viewers? What do you want to see? What are you most excited for with Noxus and Demacia and Ionia? Obviously, most people are going to say Yasuo. If that's what you're going to say, you can actually leave your comment to yourself. And
we get enough Yasuo.
We get enough Yasuo and Yone. I'd be fine if that's who they cut out. Like, good God.
Yeah.
Obviously, they won't. Again, money. But yeah, what do you think? Because this is one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
League of Legends has been a huge part of my life for like 13 years now. Your life too. I shouldn't just say my life. Our lives. It's been a huge thing. Like,
I mean, that's crazy to say, but I mean, it's like it's top 5 game for me. I've been playing it for so damn long. Like,
yep, it's
been playing World of Warcraft and playing League of Legends.
If you pool together things like, instead of like going down to individual games, if you pool things together like Pokemon and Fire Emblem and stuff like that, for me, League of Legends is top 5 for me as well. Like, it's with the amount that I've played, I couldn't honestly say it's not.
You have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows with League of Legends. Like, sometimes games go so bad, but sometimes they go so good, and it's like challenging, and each game is different. It's challenging and it's rewarding when you work together with your friends or your team, and
there's a bunch of different modes for people that can have fun. Like, you can, if you only enjoy the team fight aspect, there's ARAMs. If you only like Summoner's Rift, there's competitive versions of that. There's rotating game modes. It's a very player friendly, especially if you just don't work. If toxic people don't bother you, it's a great game.
Yeah, and you can mute people,
and you can always mute, just like any game. Like, if toxic people don't bother you, most video games online like that are really, really fun. God, yeah, I could talk about this forever. I'm so excited for what's to come. We'll probably have some more episodes in the future, maybe a little bit better planned out. Maybe we'll have some like actual written out ideas so people can bounce off of them and see what you think. But for now, we love Arcane. We love the idea of more shows. Ash Tryndamere, obviously. We love all of it. But most of all, we love you. Thank you so much for coming by and listening to us. We will see you next time. I hope you all, if you were watching this after, hope you had a great Thanksgiving. If you celebrate, see you throughout the holidays, and we'll try to be here as often as we can. You all look great today. GG.
Don't wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the shit you don't do. Well, I'ma make hella sure that I don't become you. Have no regrets, yeah, I'm tired of my chest. I'll never forget what it's like to be in debt. Been stabbed in the back bed.